Hi, my name is Ayub Shaikh and I'm the creator of the Holistica online learning system. I'm also the main tutor on the platform as well, so I'm going to be taking your technical recruiters through the training via video. This short video is aimed at administrators, department managers and team leaders. In other words, those of you who will want to register new users onto the system, who want to adjust users' details from time to time, and those of you who want to see how their teams are engaging with the platform. So I'm going to demonstrate some added functionality which will appear on your screen which normal users won't see. This functionality will enable you to drill down and actually get into the detail of how members of your team are engaging with the platform. More importantly, I'm going to show you the correct way to add new users, so that they actually have a properly designed training path with deadlines. How to make requests relating to adjusting users on the system, and indeed how to make any other requests regarding the platform. So without further ado, let's dive into your own custom setup. Firstly, I'm assuming that you've already watched the initial welcome message to all users, the one that gives you a helicopter view of the learning system. Now, if you haven't done so already, please do go back and watch that. It's really important before we move on. Now let's take a look at your own custom setup and show you how to carry out some really important functions as a manager, team leader, or administrator within your organization. Let's firstly look at how you can register a new user onto the system with a correct learning roadmap. The first thing we need to understand is that although there is a large and ever-increasing amount of training material on the learning platform, we might not necessarily want all of the material to be available to everyone immediately. It can be overwhelming. So the first thing you will need to do is decide which training is a priority for your user. And so we create a training roadmap for your new user first. And this is done in the following way. Head on over to this URL, or with your smartphone, point your camera to this QR code and you will see the form that starts the whole process of registering a new user. At first glance, it looks quite detailed, but generally this form takes less than a few minutes to fill out. If we go through your form, you'll see that it starts with the student's details, asks for their name, their location, and their role title. As you can see, the conventions used here will be correct for your organization. Now, this is an important bit. Under Students' Expected Area of Focus, you can choose the areas which you think this new technical recruiter is going to specialize in at some point in the future. Of course, you can just leave it as generic too. After that, we fill out the manager's details, including name, email, and their region or department. Again, the conventions on the form should be correct for your organization. Now we set about creating a detailed training roadmap for your student, and it is literally a point-and-click exercise. As we go down the list, we can see that it goes from the fundamentals to the more vertical areas. The next bit's quite important. We generally recommend that all students complete the first 3 programs, as they are essentially the bedrock of understanding IT recruitment, and they cover everything from the basic concepts to how an IT department is set up to methodologies such as Agile and DevOps. So these first 3 should really be mandatory for all users. Even if a recruiter has been doing technical recruitment for some time, we still recommend that they whiz through this and take the quizzes at the end to be absolutely sure there are no gaps in their knowledge. We normally recommend that these first 3 programs here be completed within the first month of registration. Now beyond that, we're into the specialisms. So now you can go down and click whichever areas of IT you would like your new user to become comfortable with. By the way, two things to note here. Firstly, although we have set these dates as a maximum of 8 weeks, of course you can adjust and extend afterwards simply by emailing our admin team, which I'll explain towards the end. So you go through the form and make sure everything is completed properly, and now the exciting bit. Once you've completed the form and clicked the Send Now button, a copy of this, in effect, contract is sent typically to 4 important parties. The new user, of course, receives a copy of the form that has been completed to show that they have now registered. The manager is sent a copy of this so they have a record too. Any administration or L&D management within your company also gets a form, and of course finally the administrator at Holistica will also get a copy of this form. Once we receive notification at Holistica via this form, the new user is created and registered onto the platform, usually within 24 hours and often earlier. At this point, the platform takes over and sends out an invitation to the new user to enroll with username and password. They will also get an email notification outlining all the courses that have been assigned to them. So now let's go in and see which record has been created. When we go into the platform, we can see that under OPS, there are a number of managers that we've already put onto the system. But we can also see that we now have a user called OPS Test User. If we go into that record, we can see their dashboard. And we can immediately see that the correct courses and the allocated deadlines have been assigned to that particular user. So what we are now looking at is the dashboard which the user will see as soon as they sign in. They are clearly a part of Dan Lewis's team. And as Dan puts on new team members, they will all start to turn up here under the team list. Of course, as we would expect, there are not many points at the moment. In fact, Test User seems to have accrued some points simply for signing on late at night and maybe using the platform out of hours. A couple of things to note here. On the dashboard, you can see that there are 2 menu items at the top for your standard user. What that means is that when they click on the learning item there, they can go into My Learning. And this will give them an overview of all the courses that are currently assigned to them. Also clearly marked are the deadlines relating to each of these programs. And as the user is assigned new courses, of course they too will start to appear here. You can, as a manager, also choose to immediately assign all of the courses to the user, but only allocate immediate deadlines to those that you feel are important. And that would, of course, all be done through the form we mentioned earlier. The other thing a user can do is go to their learning dashboard from here. This item draws out a far more detailed understanding of their activity. It usually takes some time to appear because it's actually drawing out live statistics of this user at a very granular level. Of course, as would be expected, there is no activity for this user at this point. But eventually, any activity that he does take part in will be shown down here. So what we're going to do now is log in as Dan. Now, of course, as we would expect, Dan has no assigned modules unless he specifically asks for them. And that, of course, is no problem. If a manager wants to see all of the training that is available, all they need to do is fill out the form for themselves in exactly the same way as they would for a user, and just request that all the courses are assigned. in which case they would turn up here. Now from Dan's dashboard, he can see all of his people here. Of course, at the moment, there is just one test user, which will disappear very soon and be replaced by the new team as soon as Dan starts to register users. They will start to appear here. When you log in as a manager, you can also see that your interface is slightly different from the standard user. You too are going to be able to see the rankings of all of your people and the points accrued by your team members here. But what you can also see up here in your top menu is that you have an additional item, the Discover tab. Now, to be honest, the only thing you will need to use on the Discover tab is the standard Reports item for management and reporting purposes. This area actually allows the manager to view the team activity from a number of different angles. But generally, we found that this is far more than a manager actually needs, and they're not really essential for most purposes. From a management perspective, the function that you're going to be using most is the leaderboard function here. Once we click the leaderboard, you can immediately see how your team is engaging and who is putting in the most effort. What you can also do, and which is really useful, is filter this area according to individual users. So if you've got a big team down here and you want to check one particular user, you would filter according to the users by clicking in this area here. So let's say we just want to study the progress of our test user. You would click on that. And this gets you immediately to his or her record. Now this is important. From here, if you click on their name, you can go directly into those detailed metrics relating to that particular user. So let's say you're having a catch-up or a review meeting with that team member, then this is the screen to have up, and it will show you exactly how they've been engaging with the platform. Now, as promised, I want to show you a more typical learning dashboard screen and what it looks like after the user's been involved with the platform for some time. One thing to note is that if the user has been using the system for some time, it might take quite a while for the live information to come up to a minute or so. So just hang in there and it will extract all the results. So that is how a manager can keep a tab on the individual members within their team. Finally, from time to time, of course, you'll need to carry out a few tweaks to your team on the platform. For example, you might want to remove a user and put another user in their place. In that situation, simply email this address here, and one of our administration team will be happy to help. Similarly, things like change of name, deleting a user, adding a new deadline, requesting an Excel spreadsheet of your current users, anything such as that is simply done by emailing the administrator directly. Also, things like certificates are dispatched directly by the administrator as soon as courses are complete, but often managers will request a copy of those for themselves. For any other queries that you might have, you can email our administration team via Olivia, and we will happily jump into action to resolve any issues you may have. That's a view of the platform from the management perspective. I hope that helps.